The sixth chapter of Matthew. Sixth chapter of Matthew. We had a wonderful service this morning. It's always a wonderful service when someone gets saved. And that's what church is all about. I wish we had a lot more of them getting saved. I always look forward to on Sunday nights when we have baptism. That's just, boy, I'll tell you what, that's just kind of what I live for. I just love it to have people converted and baptized. And we're going to have baptism tonight. We're going to have testimony service. And so there's no misunderstanding right now. Johnny's going to be leading our testimony service. And, Parrish. Johnny Parrish is the one I'm talking about. That Johnny, one in the red shirt. Okay, yes. Or maybe Penny. I don't know. No. Well, she just got so smug, she was pointing to Johnny, so I thought I'd scare her just a little bit. This morning, because of lack of time, I didn't really get a chance to really get into my sermon like I would want to. And tonight, I guess this was kind of a continuation of my sermon, or at least you will see a resemblance, or at least it's kin in some way. I changed it a little bit, which you always have to do when you continue a sermon. You can't just take up right where you left off. It's the 6th chapter of Matthew, and it's the 19th verse. I'll begin with the 19th verse. The Lord is speaking here, and he says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust nor doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Everybody is laying up treasure. Everybody is building a kingdom. Now, you are either in line with God's plans for your life or you're not. It's just as simple as that. One time when I first began to preach, it was about the first devotion I ever gave. I just surrendered to preach. I was going to Ridge Drive, and they asked me if I'd like to go to the nursing home up here one Sunday afternoon and give a devotion, and I did. And after it was over, well, there was a lady there in a wheelchair, and she had, I believe, both legs taken off, maybe one leg. She had diabetes. And she said, "Could you come back through the week? I'd like to speak to you." And I said, "Yes, I will. I'll come back." And she told me what her room number was. And I went back later in the week, knocked on the door, and she said, "Come in." I said, "Well, I'm the preacher that you asked to see." And she never did look at me. She was looking out the window. She had her back to me all the time she was talking. And her husband was very old and very ill, and he was laying there in the bed. And I don't know if he was even aware that I was there. And she said, "Young man, I want to tell you something." She said, "My husband and I were saved when we were very young, about 18 years old, when we first got married." She said, "We had a farm." And she said, "There were a lot of things in life that we wanted." She said, "Our goal in life was to have a nice home, and we wanted antique furniture." And she said, "We didn't go to church." She said, "We were saved, but we didn't really go to church, certainly on a regular basis." She said, "Because we worked the horses hard all week for 6 days, plowing and whatever they do. And then Sunday we would rest the horses, and we didn't go to church." But she said that's what we always wanted. We wanted a nice home in town with nice antique furniture. And she said, "We got it." She said, "We finally got the nice home that we wanted and the nice antique furniture that we wanted." And she was sitting there in the nursing home, and she was facing west. And she said, "The only problem is," she said, "that nice home is over there on Main Street. And that nice furniture is over there on Main Street. And we're here in the nursing home. And we'll never see what we work for all of our lives again." Now, Jesus here is admonishing us to lay up treasure. But lay it up in heaven. We're to lay up treasure, but lay your treasures up in heaven. Why? Because everything else here will perish, isn't that right? Everything else here is going to be left behind. The only thing that I will ever have, and the only thing that you will ever have, is what we send ahead. And so many times we think of treasure as tangible objects. Maybe it's a rare instrument. Maybe it's fine furniture. Maybe it's money in the bank. Maybe it's a nice home. Maybe it's cattle, maybe it's horses, maybe it's automobiles, boats, whatever. But we think of tangible things. But you see, we can treasure other things. Our treasure might be our ability to play music, Ted. That might be our delight. That might be, I might say, that might be our idol. You see, anything that you put before God is an idol. It's idolatry. It may be money. Some people are never satisfied with the amount of money that they have. But it's all going to pass away. When I was a very young man, I loved the guitar. Oh, I loved the guitar, especially Chet Atkins. And I finally acquired an electric guitar. And my goal in life was to be able to play a guitar like Chet Atkins. And I mean, that became just a burning, consuming desire of mine. I remember I'd come home from work, and as soon as I'd come home, I'd go in the bedroom, I'd get my guitar out, plug it into the amplifier, and I'd practice. And I would practice. And I'd practice. Finally, it'd be time to eat supper, and I'd run in there and eat a little bit, and I'd go back in there, and I'd practice. And to the neglect of my family. And I did that night after night after night after night, and it finally dawned on me. What's the purpose? You know what really dawned on me? I think I saw Chet Atkins on television. Now, used to, they had a country program on every morning. It was old film shots of the old country bands like Hank Williams, Hank Snow, just different ones, and he was a very young man, and boy, he could play that guitar. But I saw him on TV, and I thought, he's getting old. And it dawned on me, as good as he is on the guitar, the day's going to come when he's going to have arthritis in his fingers, and he can't play it anymore. Or he's going to die and forget it all. And I thought, here I am spending all of these hours and all of this time trying to learn to master the guitar. And what's the purpose? It's all going to pass away. Now let me clear this up real quick. There's nothing wrong with the guitar. There's nothing wrong with the piano. There's nothing wrong with the violin. There's nothing wrong with the flute. There's nothing wrong with anything that you use to glorify God as long as God comes first. You see, everything that you are and have and can do should be to His glory, honor, and praise. But just to learn to play the guitar for the sake of learning to play the guitar is wrong, and it becomes idolatry. Now let's look at the rest of the verses. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. You know, I can tell where your treasure is by what you talk about and what you think about and what consumes you. Isn't that true? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If it's in a car, that's where your heart is. That's where your treasure is. If all you talk about is your fishing trips, that's where your treasure is. If all you talk about is baseball or football or sports or whatever, there's where your treasure is. If all you talk about is your business and the money that you're making, that's where your treasure is. And let me tell you something. God says, I'll not have any other God before me. And there's not a person here that doesn't love children any more than I do. And I think all of you that know me know that I love children. The first place I go on Sunday morning is to the nursery. I want to kiss all the babies. I want to see all the babies. I want to hug them all bye before they go home. But parents, I want to tell you something. The most dangerous thing in the world you can do is make your child a god. And I see parents make gods out of their children. Put their children before anything. They will worship those children. And that's dangerous because God says, I'll not have any other God before me. Now this morning, we sing the song, He is Lord. He is Lord. He has risen from the dead and He is Lord. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And that's true. And I want to tell you something, and we hear people say this all the time, make Jesus the Lord of your life. Folks, I want to tell you something, Jesus is Lord regardless of what you do. And you will find out, and every one of us here someday will find out that Jesus is Lord. Now, you may not allow Him to rule over you, but He's still Lord. And the day is going to come when every knee shall bow and every tongue is going to confess that he is Lord. Then what happens to all the treasures? What happens to all the things that you regard as so precious to you? What's going to happen to all those things that have become an idol to you? What's going to happen to all of your fine works of art if that's where your heart is? Or your musical ability, or your sportsmanship, the fact that you're strong and you achieve in sports. What's going to happen to all of that? What's going to happen to all of the things that you have made an idol? We find out in Isaiah. Turn, if you will, to Isaiah, the 2nd chapter. The 2nd chapter of Isaiah. And look at verse 17. I'll begin at verse 17. Isaiah, 2nd chapter, 17th verse. And you know, I'm amazed at God. Maybe I'm more amazed at me than I am God, and that's probably where it is. Because you see, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. God always knows what he's doing. But it's amazing to me that God will let us go on and go on. Now, he'll warn us, but he let us go on and go on and go on and go on. But as I said this morning, man is running out of time. The human race is running out of time. You're running out of time, and I'm running out of time. And he will let you go on in your sin and in your idolatry, and he will let you go on in putting you first or things first in your life. But that's going to come to a halt someday. Look at this, verse 17. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. And the idols he shall utterly abolish, and they shall go into the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. In that day a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they have each one for himself, made for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to go into the cliffs of the rocks and in the tops of the ragged rocks, for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Isn't it amazing the things that we call treasure right now? Now you think about this. Now, I've always been interested in boxing. It's such a gentle sport. And don't ask me why I like boxing. I don't know why it is, other than it's just, and I don't even care much about it anymore. I haven't watched boxing in a long time, ever since my wife punched me out. I thought, boy, that hurts. I'm going to... No, but I like boxing because it's just one-on-one, and a lot of times a team sport, you know, you say, well, that team would have won if this guy hadn't goofed up or whatever. But with boxing, you know, you just go in there and they slug it out, and whoever's the best man, you know, or had the most money and bought off the judges. I don't know how that all works, but anyway, I liked boxing, you know, and here's a man, now just picture this. Here's a man that has gone into the ring, and he's just won the championship of the world. And there he's got that big belt, and he's holding it up before the world, and he's so proud of that. And don't you know, the next day, when he gets out of bed, he's so glad to go among his friends, and they all pat him on the back, and, oh, hey, how you doing, champ, and all of that. And there he is displaying this belt. Now imagine this. Here he is so proud of all of his glory, all of his accomplishment. What if in a sudden the Lord returns? Listen, that championship belt would mean absolutely nothing to him. He would throw it to the bats and the moles and run into the rocks and cry for the rocks to fall on him. Do you think when the Lord is going to return, do you think the multimillionaires are going to say, oh, I wonder if my money's safe? That's going to be the last thought that crosses their mind. Do you think when the Lord returns, Chet Adams is going to say, oh, if I just had a better guitar? Or one more record album? No. Do you know what the Lord's trying to say over here in Matthew 6? Get your priorities straight. Get your priorities straight. Lay your treasures up in heaven. Why? Because it'll remain. It will remain. Everybody's building a kingdom. You're either building for God or you're building for yourself. And I want to tell you something. Anything you build for yourself, folks, it's not going to endure. Now, let me show you something in this. In the 6th chapter, turn back to the 6th chapter. And let's look at verse 22. Through 24. For where your treasure, well, excuse me, to 22, I'm sorry. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, have you seen some people that they'll get on a track and they stay on a track and they accomplish things? But you know what? I've always loved the guitar, and I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar. Part of that time not for the glory of God, for myself, but in later years I'd love to be able to play the guitar, but for God's glory. But I don't have singleness of eye. You know what my problem is? Boy, I want to play the guitar. Boy, I'll buy a guitar and I'll practice a little bit and I'll say, he plays a fiddle. Man, I'd like to play a fiddle. So I'll go get me a fiddle, and I'll saw on that a little while, and I'll think, boy, what I really like to do is play the piano. So I'll go over and I'll try on the... In other words, I don't stick to anything. And because I don't stick to anything, I will never really master anything. Now, my brother plays a violin, fiddle. He don't play a violin. He plays a fiddle. Now, he's not here tonight, so I can say this. Don't you dare tell him I said it. He doesn't have a lot of ability. Now, I'll say he probably has the ability, but he's tone deaf. Do you know what tone deaf is? Well, tone deaf means you can hit this note and hit this note, and they can't tell which note, one note from another. And listen, if you play the fiddle, you better not be tone deaf because there's not any frets on it. See, on a guitar, if you push a fret, you're going to get a certain note. But with a fiddle, if you can have your finger off just a little ways, it's going to be a discord. But anyway, he told my mother. He said, at the time I was sawing on the fiddle, and he got him a fiddle, and he was sawing on it. And, of course, this hurt Mother's feelings because if I say anything about my brother, she's mad at me. And if he says anything about me, well, then she's mad at him. But he said, Mother, I want to tell you something. He said, I will be a better fiddle player than Jerry. She's, you know. And he said, now, Jerry has a lot more natural ability than I do, but I'll stick with it. And he does. He'll stay with it. When he's 85 years old, you can go out there and he'll still be sawing on that fiddle. You know. He stays with it. And I like that. I like that. He took up jogging. And I took up jogging. I jogged till it got warm weather. You know, it took about 2 weeks. I jogged. Well, y'all remember last spring when I told everybody, I said, no, Wednesday night we're all going to meet down the jogging trail. I wish you could rent the jogging shoes, you know, because I shouldn't have bought them, you know. But I'd go down there, boy, and I'd walk. And I found out something. It causes acute fatigue. And since I'm lazy by nature, I decided I wanted to play the fiddle, you know. But see, he took it up. Now, he's almost old as I am. He's like 4 years younger than me. But it'd be sleeting. Where's Larry? He's out there jogging. Jogging. I hope he jogs to Bonita and they can examine him. You know, but he does. He jogs and he runs and he runs. Hot weather, pretty weather, cold weather. He stays with it. He runs those 26-mile marathons. And he's almost old as I am. Still pretty young. His goal is to run across the panhandle of Oklahoma. But the point is, he stays with it. And that's what Jesus says here. Singleness of eye. Folks, figure out what you want to do, then stay with it. If you're going to serve God and stay with it. Why does he say that? Look, verse 23. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is the darkness? Notice this. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And isn't it amazing how we try to do that? Boy, I'm in church this week. Praise God. I'm in church. I'm on fire for the Lord. Whoops, fishing season. Now I'm over here. the fish ain't biting. Praise God, I'm back, preacher. Here I am. See, we jump back and forth. We don't figure on something, set our sights on something, and stay with it. And that's what Jesus said to do. Stay with it. Boy, if the Lord ever converts my brother, he'll be good. He'll stay with it. He'll stay with it. And folks, that's what we need to do. This young man got saved today, and my best advice to you is from this day forward, live the Christian life the best of your ability. Don't be in and out, in and out. And it's amazing, we Christians are just in and out. We'll be in there a while on fire for the Lord, and then, have you seen Brother so-and-so lately? No, he hadn't been here in quite a while. You might not see him for a year or two, and then they come back and rededicate their life, and they're on fire again. And they're trying to love God and the world at the same time. And it's like walking a tightrope. You know, I'll tell you something, a miserable existence. I'll tell you something a lot worse than being lost. I mean, as far as the way you feel. That's going to church, but really not wanting to. Has anybody ever been there before? You know, you go to church because of peer pressure or whatever. In other words, you think, well, if I don't go, they're going to say I'm backslid. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I've been there. You know, boy, you come to church and yes, praise God. And all the time you're thinking, man, I wish I was home. I wish I was out on the lake. You know what used to make me mad? Something used to really make me mad, especially in the springtime. I'd get up on Sunday morning, you know, and we'd get the kids ready to go to church. I hated it when this happened. Get them all ready to go. There goes my neighbor by with a bass boat. Pretty day, I'm going to church and he's going to the lake. Well, what's my reaction and what's your reaction? You know what we don't say? Honey, well, let's be praying for our neighbor. We think, that dirty dog, he's going to go to hell. Don't he know he ought to be in church serving the Lord? You know, all I'm saying is, I wish I was him. I wish I was married to his wife because she don't make him go to church on Sunday. But that's just the way we do, isn't it? See, but it's where your heart is. See, my heart's out on the lake or wherever. And I've talked to people that have been to church and they've confessed this. They'd say, boy, you'd be preaching and I'd be looking right at you. And I'd be nodding my head and I'd be amening. And all the time they'd think, I wonder who's going to win that football game this evening. I wonder if we got any popcorn. You know, or will I need to stop at the store and get some? Do we have any Pepsis? And are the guys coming over or whatever? See, their heart's not there. And that's a miserable existence, isn't it? Isn't that miserable? How many's here tonight because they really want to be? Okay, do that again. Somebody get a pencil and paper. We're going to take names. It's good if you're here because you want to be. See, then you can really worship God and you can leave with a blessing. But if we're just here because Mama made us, or, well, the preacher's going to wonder where I am, and wrong reason. Lay your treasure up in heaven, not here on earth. The happiest Christian, the happiest person, is the person who gets saved, gets his eyes on Jesus, and keeps his eye on Jesus. Like Paul said, I am crucified to the world, and the world is crucified unto me. And let me tell you something about crucifixion. We all are crucified. When we accept Christ, we're crucified to the world. The world is crucified unto us. And let me tell you something about crucifixion. The man hanging on the cross, he's not thinking about tomorrow. He's not looking behind him. And he's not coming back. And that should be our attitude, isn't it? I'm not worried about tomorrow. I belong to Christ, and I'm serving him today. I'm not looking back, and I'm not coming back. In other words, I'm not going back to the world. I'm dead to the world. Now I'm living for Jesus. That person is a happy person. Boy, it's just so hard to try to do two things. You know, it's not hard to do one thing. You know what? It is so easy to do the chores around the house that she asked me to do. When I make up my mind, I'm going to do them. Isn't it, guys? I'm not the only one. Come on, be honest with it. You know, Jerry, here's what I want you to do today. I want you to take the trash out. I want you to clean up your room. Well, I mean the study. You know, I get all my books out and I scatter them all over the floor there. Everywhere. A while ago, she come in there and she was so disgusted because she wanted to show her dad my study and he couldn't get in there. You know, because I'm not kidding. Well, I'll take a picture of it sometime. You'll never see it because she wouldn't let you see it. But you should clean up your room, take out the trash, you know, do the things I'm supposed to do. Clean out your car, get your rake and clean your car out. And mow the yard. Well, do you guys know what I'm talking about? You don't want to. You know, you don't want to. You just don't. So you go over, boy, it's hard to get the lid off the trash thing. You spill it on the floor, and it's just drudgery. Why, your heart's not in it. Then you think, golly, I got to mow the yard. You know, but just stop and think about it. But if you say, you know, you're right, the trash needs emptying, my room needs cleaning up, I need to mow the yard, and I need to clean my car out. Boy, you just go in there and get this trash. Okay, got that done, now what's next? You know, in other words, if you make up your mind that's what you're going to do, that's 95% of the battle. Isn't that right? Why don't we just make up our mind we're going to serve God and forget the world? We'd be a lot happier, wouldn't we? And we're happier in the fact that we know by serving God we're laying up treasures in heaven. Let's stand and